with Britton Allen, basically bringing in a body, right? This is somebody who was at USC, IMG kid from 2019, same age as Mo Torre. Just for perspective, 2019, Sam Brooks, who else was in that class? Jeremiah Payton, right? Peyton Matoka, if you remember that name. So a long time ago, goes to IMG, goes to USC, doesn't really work out, plays at Utah a little bit, plays some special teams, had some injuries, which has allowed him to have this extra year of eligibility. But I think more just getting a body in the safety room, for practice purposes. You don't want to be using walk-on guys that never played at the scholarship level at that position. So I think that's really what that was about, was getting just a body in the room and doing it that way. Because ultimately, you need to practice, right? You have 105 scholarships. I'm not sure exactly whether this is a player that is going to play special teams even. He didn't play a ton of snaps at Utah, but I think just for getting practices through, this is the kind of guy you need just to function as in practices, which again is not the coolest thing in the world to talk about, but is extremely important to be able to function as in practice. I was out there in spring. You saw a lot of walk-on safeties, defensive backs, even with some good ones that you had brought in. Just because you have injuries, things happen. So the more guys you have with at least FBS ability, I think the better shape you're going to be in, because ultimately that's going to allow you to run a better practice, have more challenges. Let's say you have third string wide receivers that you want to get reps, guys, scholarship guys you like, young guys. You don't necessarily want those players going against walk-ons. I mean, all respect to walk-ons. They're huge for the organization, for the function of the team. But ideally, the more scholarship caliber guys you have, the better. There it is. Yeah, look at those Rocky Mountains, man. I went hiking yesterday. We're going trout fishing tomorrow. Do a little whitewater rafting too. So yeah, man, having a fun time. God's country out here. Much more of a nature vacationer than a city vacation. I already live, in the best city in the world in Miami. So I'm much more of a nature guy when I get out of there. Only negative is the internet and the room's not too good. So I'm out here on my phone trying to figure it out, but we'll make it work. We'll probably get Pete on tomorrow if we can. But yeah, so that's the story with the walk-on. That's at least as far as I know. I know that they were trying to bring in guys similar to that, like as far as offensive linemen, and the idea for that was very much let's function in terms of practice, right? And if they develop, That's a bonus. But really, with that kind of guy, you're talking about practice. All right, so I mentioned behind the scenes in the thumbnail that I did for this show. And I wanted to talk about a really cool video that I just finished watching this morning, which was put up at the University of Miami, Spring All Access. So it's interesting. You're putting out a spring video. This is footage of spring practice, interviews from spring practice out here right before the season. And, I think part of the reason was, portal and all this stuff kind of going on. You don't want to rush out that spring footage, but also what happened in spring is basically setting up what's happening in the season. So I strongly recommend everybody to watch it. It's official University of Miami. It's like a University of Miami Hard Knocks, really, but it's condensed. I don't know how many episodes there's going to be. I'll try to find out, but this was really very much focused on the spring practice, certain players. Carson Beck was featured. Akeem Messidor was featured. Elijah Lofton was featured. You saw a lot of great plays from JoJo Trader. My big takeaways, I think my first big takeaway was, people always say I'm hyping Elijah Lofton too much, and maybe I am. But for those who aren't able to watch practice, what I'd recommend, you guys do is check out the Canes All Access video, the official Miami Hurricanes YouTube. Same channel where you get Storm Sessions, my interviews with the players, which I recommend you check out if you haven't done that. What I would say is watch that video, watch the whole thing, particularly when it comes to Lofton. Go to 15-minute in. Pete, is that you?
It is me. Yes.
Oh, good. I needed you, man. I'm working the comments. I'm trying to do things with my phone. I'm struggling, man. So this was
I have one question
lift.
for you. I have one question for you, D.
Yeah, what's up?
Have you purchased YouTube Premium this morning yet? If not, then you haven't done your job.
Yeah, man, I definitely gotta do that for both of us probably. I don't know if you're on our account or not, but
I
but yeah,
am. Well, you
yeah,
saw
of course you are.
you saw what happened.
All right, YouTube Premium, consider a purchase. I'll buy it. I will. That was so. What was the commercial for? It was like an underwear or something.
It was pants. It's like I don't know, man. Everything we get is like workout related pants. I don't know if it's because we're talking about this stuff on here. We talk about the weighted vest all the time. Because I'll tell you, man, you see our Kane's Insight stuff that we do on there. It's all work related, man. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. You're right. So okay, I'll get the.
I think it
I'll
might
get the
be. I don't know.
premium.
These computers are picking up on we talk about all this stuff, man. I don't know.
Kane's cat saying Pete looks skinny to me. I mean, definitely built, but you've
Dude, I
lost
just
weight,
stepped on.
leaned out with the
I
weighted
stepped on the
jacket.
scale this morning. I stepped on the scale this morning at 210. So we're feeling good. We're feeling light, man. I do feel light. A light 210. I'm a freight train moving right now, man. Get out of my way.
There it is, man. You're like a Bobby Pruitt right now. You're like a nickel linebacker at this point with your speed
Yeah,
and
I don't
coverage
know if
ability.
I don't know about the speed. I don't know. I'm like I said. I'm all power right now. I'm trying to get the sveltness down a bit, but we'll get there, man. No, but I wanted to hop in D this morning. I don't have too much time either. I'm actually headed out to Marco Island for a couple of days. While I'll be still connected, obviously, but nice pickup yesterday. Did you share the scouting report that we received this morning on Cortez Redding?
I didn't. Go ahead and read that.
So
pull up the phone
from someone,
So
not
we were
someone
communicating with a former college coach.
Yeah. So, and this is again on Miami's commit yesterday, Cortez Redding safety. Let me find it here. So he said, I think he's,
we talked about it.
Yeah. He said, I think he's solid. Good, not great speed, but enough to cover ground in the post. Tracks the ball well, not a ton of tackling on tape, and leaves his feet at the hip point. So that's a coach's point of view. I'm watching yesterday, man, this guy's physical, but this guy's saying, leaves his feet at the point, not afraid, just needs refining. Not sure how big he is. Thinks he lacks the size and speed to be elite, but can be a good player. Surprised there's not similar closer to home. So that was an interesting comment to me, D. I think there's a few factors. I think. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Pete.
No, I was just saying on the last comment, I think you have his teammate committed in Jontavius Wyman. You have strong recruiting ties there. Trust me, I think if there was someone locally that fit that bill, they would go after it. But this is this person watched this without knowing what the rankings are, but it's someone who knows what to look for in a defensive player. And I don't know that this person was aware there's a top 25 safety in the country necessarily. So if there was a top 20, another top 30 type safety in the country down here, I think Miami would definitely go for it. I just don't see that right now.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is South Florida is just down when it comes to defensive backs. I think South Florida's been down probably since 2000. They had that great run in 2018, 2019, which was like elite. I mean, Patrick Surtain, Tyson Campbell. I mean, the list went on Asante Samuel. And then you go to the next few years, a lot of busts. This year, just not as much talent locally, or as Atlanta's loaded. We went through that list of Atlanta safeties that they offered on top of Redding, who they got, on top of Blake Stewart, who they missed. Jontavius Wyman, a corner, but another Atlanta guy. So I think Etheridge and Will Harris, you see them making a concerted effort to recruit Atlanta. And I think it makes sense given that I did a breakdown of this on Kane's Insight, which was, we talked about like the various hotbeds for defensive back recruiting. It really was it was the South Florida area, and it was the Atlanta metro area. Those were the two that were really the ones that had the most players. And Miami down right now, South Florida down, so Atlanta makes a lot of sense.
Pierre said that man had over 100 tackles last year. What's that guy talking about? Look, this is someone that these guys don't necessarily watch things they don't look at the stats, right? They're watching the film. And I've also heard defensive tackle stats in high school are probably the least reliable thing. I don't think the stats are necessarily what college people are looking at, or what evaluators are looking at when they're watching. Same thing as we see with college to NFL projection. There's a lot more that goes into it. And by the way, these were positive comments for the most part. This person said that he believes Redding could be a very good college player. I think there's obvious size that he needs to put on, D. I don't think that anyone's denying that. You can always point to, yes, there's a Tyrann Mathieu who was small. Jaquan Johnson wasn't the biggest in the world, but like as someone recently in Miami, but those are outliers in the situation. And I don't think he's that tiny. I think you get him a year in the weight room, he'll be looking just fine. But these are people who are evaluating at the college level who are sharing this concern.
Yeah, and I think it's also, you saw in the comment that he made, he said this is something you could coach up because he wants to tackle, right? So, you can get stronger, you could get more fundamentally sound as a tackler, but it's hard to teach guys that have that natural pop and the natural willingness to hit. So he was saying it more like, hey, this is something that he can work on.
Hassan says, Pete, now we need your guy Owens. Man, Jamar Owens, you and I were both really, and I watched it again after I had watched Redding, a few times yesterday. I like Owens a lot, man. Really, really do. I don't know where Redding's commitment puts this group of guys, but they definitely need to add another one in this class. Just looking at it, I would imagine they're going to continue to try to work on Devin Jackson and maybe try to flip that one down the line. That's speculation. So that I've heard like, oh, they're really feeling that they can get that one done. But I feel like they continue to work on that one, and then maybe see someone from this last group of offers, then maybe another wave of a couple offers that go out here when high school seasons start, and you kind of go from there and see who's showing interest, see whose body types fit what you're looking for, and go from there.
Yep, I'm with you. I'm a big Owens guy. I didn't realize until I read up on him that he actually played with Redding and Wyman. So if you already have Redding, you have Wyman. They seem to be best friends. Add Owens to the mix, and now you're talking about a group that knows each other. Are they all going to be successful? Who knows? But at least you have familiarity when you're trying to flip from Indiana, right? And then also once he gets here, so that's going to be an exciting recruitment to watch. I don't think that Miami's going to let up in safety. I think they're going to keep working these guys. So, Pete, what do you think before you get going? Where are we at in the position breakdown? Because I know you and 50 did tight ends. Is that where we left off?
No, me and 50 did running backs, which I think, I think you should at some point give, I don't know if you do that now when I got to hop off here, or we do that another time this week, but we left off I did tight ends by myself yesterday. That wasn't with 50. Okay. That was just with me. Which it seemed like we had some good feedback on that show yesterday. But I think running back and tight end, like
the solo, man.
Yeah, it was solo was funny yesterday. And then the live show, obviously with the Redding, was a classic, man. With the ad popping up right before he announced, that was quite.
It worked out. You got the U. So Pete, let's do offensive line. When you got to hop off. But let's just start breaking this down here, because this is a position that we got to cover. So many names, and I want to do it while at least I had you for a little bit, Pete. Especially since you were the offensive line guru. For those who don't know, you signed Titus Howard, who ended up being a first-round pick out of Alabama State, right, to the Houston Texans.
Yeah, I've also had an undrafted guy, Rob Jones, who ended up now making it to a second contract, and that. So I've seen both sides of the spectrum here, so to speak.
A lot of
I wouldn't call myself a guru. I'm not calling myself a guru.
I know.
This is the Senegal national team, the Lions of Teranga. So there you go. I actually got it in Spain. They had it out there in Spain. I had to get it. It is a nice shirt, though. Thank you.
All right, so let's roll here, Pete. Talking about the offensive line. Also, you have a lot of intel on the offensive line as well. Talking to people just in the program about that group. So, let's start with the stuff we know. Right, this is going to be the starting five, barring any injury. Let's go right to left, just in order of where we're the stars of the team. Right. So, you have to start this offensive line talking about Francis Mauigoa. Just very much coming out of his shell, I think, as a leader. I interviewed him for Storm Sessions, which was an awesome interview, one of our longest interviews, actually. You should check that out on YouTube if you haven't seen that on Kane's All Access. He was also quoted extensively in this spring All Access video that the Canes put out. English is not his first language. His first language is Samoan, even though that is a United States territory. So he really had an adjustment, and now, I mean, obviously, you would never know his first language wasn't English. He has an accent, but he's English speaker, and I think he's just becoming more vocal with the media, with his teammates. He knows he's a top 10 pick. I think him, Fano from Utah, Proctor from Alabama. I think all three of those guys, barring injury, are going to go probably in the top 10. That seems like that kind of year where tackles are going to be high quality. I saw a quote from an NFL guy on ESPN, one of these anonymous execs, saying basically like, last year we had a bunch of tackles that we liked, but they really could have been guards. Talking about like Will Campbell, Membu. I don't remember who the third one was. But he said these guys here, Kelvin Banks, all first rounders. He goes, they all could be probably be guards. He goes, this year we got some real deal blue chip tackles between Mauigoa, Fano, and Proctor. So I just think everything helped, knock on wood, health permitting. I think you're looking at all ACC, potentially all American, top 10 season from Francis Mauigoa.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I think the hype has built to where because with O-line, man, it happens also with like Pro Bowls in the NFL. Since there's no stats, it's such a hype driven position in terms of these accolades. So I think what we've seen a little bit more push, I think, this offseason. I don't know if was he at ACC Media Day last year? I think
his brother
was. Yeah, he wasn't. So I think
I
think that's an important, as funny as it sounds, but these things all matter, man. You need to get a first team All-American when you have a talent like that, because it's a recruiting pitch. So those accolades, as stupid as they might seem, and as fans, sometimes it's like, well, it doesn't really matter that Cam Kitchens was a first team All-American because, what have they haven't really done anything crazy with it. But as these things build up over time, it does matter, and it's something to point to. So I think something like that with him is just looking at him specifically, because we understand he looks like a top 20 type pick. I think, as you talked about with some of these other guys from last year, some teams may see him as a guard. Some teams are going to say he's been amazing at tackle. Why are we going to move him? So that debate will be had when that time comes. But for Miami this year, I think he needs to continue to take that next step. I think his freshman year, he had some stuff with penalties, right? With was a false start, just like mental lapses, right? I think last year he was pretty clean overall, but there's always room for improvement. And I know, like, for as much of a freak as he already was before this season in terms of weight room stuff, what I heard in the springtime about him was that he just took it to a whole nother level, that he had added 10 pounds of good weight and was moving even better than before. So very excited to see him now. And this always happens. The first few days of practice, right, Dean, in the fall, those post-practice instant reaction things are always like, man, this guy looks bigger. This guy looks slimmer. This guy looks quicker. And I'm sure we'll see a lot of that. But it was hard to imagine last year that this guy could be even more of a freak, because it seemed like he was already there. But the word I'm getting is that he's taking it up a notch.
Yeah, no, I think he smells it. He wants to be shaking Goodell's hand. That's been his goals as he signed with the Miami Hurricanes. He wants to be on the Penei Sewell path. He had a great quote in this behind the scenes ACC thing or spring practice thing, where he said, everything I do, I'm like, can I block Micah Parsons playing like this? So that's the standard he's already holding himself to. He's thinking big. So I like that mentality. Like, hey, is this good enough to stop Micah Parsons? Maybe it's good enough to stop Duke or, FSU. Is it good enough to stop the Cowboys, right? So I think that's where his head is at. He's in for a big year. Pete, do me a favor, go to MiamiHurricanes.com Twitter and pull this up, or the official Miami Hurricanes football Twitter, because they did a picture of some of our offensive linemen, some of our players in general, and how they looked when they got here and how they look now. And one of the
I think it
players
was
featured,
was it not I saw something that Mirrorball tweeted this morning of McCoy and Inez. Oh, here it is. It's the full.
yeah.
It's the
So
full
yeah, you
graphic.
found it's the same. You could find that too. That's because
Oh
that's
yeah.
what I'm getting at.
Okay. Yeah. So it's isolated. It's isolated. Mirrorball's is. So let me pull that one up.
Yeah. So Cooper, this guy, when you talk to people around the program, talking about Nez Cooper, they're saying he had the best spring of pretty much any player on the team. I thought he was, I thought this season he was good, not great. He had been better the 2 prior years, at least relative to his age group. I thought last year, could have been better. But now this year, you see the weight transformation. Also, McCoy, who we'll talk about in a second, is the left guard. So here are your 2 guards. Cooper really, really had a good spring. He's really changed his body. He is extremely we talk about IQ, just being in a good place mentally. This is an academic All-America type of guy, feeling comfortable as a leader, obviously feeling comfortable in his body. You just see him. He looks like a whole different person. And I heard spring, he was just outstanding. And he was good before. It's not like one of these guys where you're trying to, it's not like a reclamation project, but you want to get him from good to great, where he's one of the best guards in the country. And that's what people who observe the game tape and watch him close in spring, that's the kind of language they're using. He could be one of the better players in the country based on how he performed this spring. So, Cooper, and we'll skip over Brockmeyer. We'll go back to him in a second. But while we got McCoy up there, you see him there. McCoy, former tight end. I think people who have not seen McCoy, and he looks like a tight end in that picture on the left. I don't think people who have seen McCoy or not seen McCoy realize how big he is, Pete. This is a guy who's, legit like almost 6'7", 340, 330. I mean, he is huge. And I don't think people realize until they see him stand next to guys like Noah.
Yeah, and I've said this. I've said this a couple times, which might surprise people, but there are people in that building who think that not only is this his last year at Miami, because he's going to be a legit NFL prospect, but they think he could push to be like a top 100 pick, which Miami fans right now would be like, wow, that's kind of out of nowhere. He's just a guy who hasn't been the most consistent. He hasn't really asserted himself. And I know how it is at O-line. These guys are such fast risers that if he puts together one clean year here, he's going to test out of the building. He's going to give you everything you want from the height, weight, speed, twitchiness standpoint. I'm talking about really at that position. So watch out for him, man, to make a push to be a big time draft pick next year.
Yeah, 100% agree with everything you said. That's the eternal belief on McCoy. When you look at the picture on the left, you see both these guys. When they first got here and they looked like that, they actually both played tackle. Like they were the backup tackles on that first team. And I saw them as true freshmen. And I remember thinking, man, we hit on both these guys because they were playing tackle and looking good. Cooper ended up playing guard that year starting. McCoy redshirted, continued on his career after that. But both these guys, I think, are actually capable of playing tackle, maybe not in the NFL. McCoy maybe has more of a chance, but both these guys, I think, in terms of ACC, could play tackle. You're pretty good at tackle right now, but I think if you needed them to play tackle, maybe McCoy next year comes back and tries to be the tackle and up his stock that way. I could see both of those guys fitting there if we needed to. That just speaks to their athleticism and to their size. These are not just pure guards that with stumpy arms and 6'3", that you can only play in one place. These guys have a lot of versatility, look the part, and really should be 2 of the better players in the ACC at the guard position. Just any position, really. These should be big-time players if you're going to be where you want to be as a program. Pete, switching gears to the center position, and I want to start with James Brockermeyer, somebody I interviewed for Storm Sessions. Really smart guy. He's a football royalty, right? His dad was a first-round pick of the Carolina Panthers. He played for the University of Texas. His brother played for Texas as a linebacker, a good one. His twin brother was a 5-star player, signed with him to Alabama coming out of high school. Had another brother that played. So these guys are all about football, and he's the last one standing. His brother had to medically retire. Kind of disappointing at Alabama, mostly because of injuries. Brockmeyer ended up transferring to TCU, performed well there. Now he's going to be our starting center. And talking to people about Brockermeyer, the main thing is he is extremely smart. He has good size, and he just knows what you need to do at center, which for them, because there's so many double teams in the system, you got guys like McCoy and Cooper who we just talked about. what they value at the center position more than anything else is just IQ. This is a system. If you ask what one of the things that makes Mirrorball system unique, they put a lot more on centers than other uh, teams do, other lines do. So that's why you see a Matt Lee transfer, a Zach Carpenter transfer, now Brockermeyer, guys that have played a lot of football. So he, I think, with his IQ, his pass blocking acumen, his ability to get help on the run blocking, he doesn't have to just move guys, which was maybe his weakness at TCU. He's going to have giant guys next to him. So, that's going to be a nice mix for him.
Yeah, I agree. The smarts is what I've continuously heard with him. When it was Matt Lee a couple years ago, what I heard was, man, this guy's a freak athlete and he's tough, which both of those things turned out to be true. He tested off the charts at the combine. Last year with Carpenter, it's, man, this guy's big, and also that he was smart. But I think it also took him a little bit longer to like kind of get acclimated with the group. And as the center, I think that's very important. I think Brockermeyer came in right away, and I don't want to say that he was like bossing people around in there, coaching people up right off the bat, but he walked into the room commanding a presence and being a voice earlier than I think, not to, that the Carpenter was awesome last year for Miami. He was super solid, but you're talking about someone who can really command that line, I think.
Yeah, I agree totally. Reedtree said Carpenter was not good in space. That's why the tight splits last year. I agree that Carpenter probably wasn't as good at space as a Matt Lee, but I don't think that the tight splits didn't really have anything to do with that. Tight splits were more about being a more conservative running game that doesn't take losses and has the ability with the strength of the offensive line and the running backs to just move forward and still be top 5 in yards per carry without risking losses. That's really why you had the tight splits, and that helped Cam Ward get, the best third down percentage in the country by far, because we were just with a quarterback that good and then always winning the down and distance. That's why we had tight splits. Before we go back to the backups here, because there's a question about Ryan Rodriguez, who, is very, very important to this team. But I wanted to finish the starting lineup. Markel Bell, you sat down with him at Pop Subs. So I got Patrick holding it down with the Bell Burger, which you had a bite of. How
Delicious.
was that?
Delicious.
Delicious. He was
Still available.
Still available at Pop Subs. He was great with you. He was great with me, quite frankly, in the Storm sessions. He was awesome. Just super high IQ, I think. And you saw the stash, Coach Feld made a comment about Bell maybe 2 days ago, saying just how elite he was mentally. Obviously improving physically, but just how special he was mentally. And I think that's the key with Markel Bell. A guy that size who can bend even remotely well enough to play left tackle, which he does, and then have the IQ he has. It's hard to mess up with that kind of package.
Yeah, huge fan of the player. We've been big on him from the beginning. Technically has a couple years of eligibility left, but I think that everyone in Miami expects him to kind of be out after this year onto the next level. And I think he's got all the tools and has worked extremely hard to put himself in the position he's in now, to be, again, a top 100 type prospect, I believe, when it's all said and done.
Yep, I agree with you. It's going to come. I think one big thing with him is just the physical conditioning. Like, he's in great shape, but just getting a little stronger through the legs, because he's a tall guy. I mean, he's big, but he's not like some giant, massive guy from a weight standpoint where he's naturally going to just anchor up. He's because he's tall, guys can get under him, and he's not overly strong, so he can get pushed back sometimes. So I think just getting stronger, the length is great. Is great. Obviously, he knows how to use it. So, I think that all speaks to his upside, and the internal perception is NFL player, great kid, very ecstatic to get a Markel Bell back, and he's really had a schedule given what he did last year, which you kind of expected him to. Ultimately, I think did a really, really good job. Like when he locked guys in, they were done. He'd get beat with speed sometimes. Virginia Tech, he got beat a few times. He got beat. People were down on him for that, but he learned a lot, and like I said, once he latches on, I mean, he had some of the most dominant reps of anybody last year, where like he was literally latched onto a guy for like 10 seconds.
Albert McKinney says, when are we going to develop a center? I think Ryan Rodriguez is probably your center next year, as long as his health is okay. But I think there's much bigger issues than worrying about when Miami's going to develop a center.
Yeah, well, you know,
it's gone fine the last couple of years without doing homegrown.
Yeah, Robert Perez said, I've heard that Rodriguez is outperforming Brock at center. I think the big thing with Rodriguez is basically a starter. This is a guy who started all spring at left guard, started the UF game at left guard with McCoy still banged up. You know, McCoy's had lingering shoulder issues. We should mention that. So Rodriguez started the UF game, ended up getting hurt that game, really missed the whole season. Unfortunately, he played spring, started all spring at left guard with McCoy out. He's basically a starter, and I think he would have been the starting center if not for his injury history, right? So you can't trust him there because he just had injuries. So how do you believe that, you know, how can you bet your life that he's going to make it through the whole season? It's hard, given the history. But in terms of the player, I think he easily could have been the starting center on this team, and we wouldn't have missed a beat at all. He's a really, really good player, really big part of this team, utility infield. They're really the sixth offensive lineman. Comment from Devonair, we missed on a couple stud centers who have gone on to start in the SEC. Yeah, the big one, obviously, that comes to my mind is Connor Liu from Auburn. Yeah, there he is, Devonair. Connor Liu committed to Miami, flipped there at the last
D,
second.
I gotta hop off. I gotta hop off here, D. I apologize.
Yeah, no worries.
Your audio sounded good though, so I think you're wherever you're at right now. You should be all right.
That's all right. Backup offensive linemen are my passion, so this should be fun. So,
all right, guys.
All
later.
Right, take it easy, man. And as always, shout out to Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. All right, here, comment from Robert Perez. Why don't we run to the outside more? We have Lyle this year. We have the speed to get outside. Is at our O-line. I mean, it's really, I think, more about the system. This is a system that values not losing yards, right? And it sounds stupid, but when you have a system where you're running outside a lot of moving pieces, you know, it's very possible for you to lose yardage. And if you lose yardage, that could be a drive killer. I mean, tackles for loss kills drives. So I think when it comes to this system, I mentioned the tight splits earlier, it's very much about, you know, mucking it up inside, double teams, pushing guys off the ball, and the running backs who are all 220 plus, 215 plus, just moving guys. So when you combine that low risk offensive system that lives inside the tackles, that has tight splits, does not take many losses, but then you have a top 5 yards per carry because the offensive line's so big and strong they can just kind of move guys, and the running backs are so big they can move guys. It just makes your offense work a lot better. Backing up, say, in other words, a safe, boring system where you rarely break off a long run. Listen, I don't know if our offense was too boring last year. I would say it was pretty exciting. And yeah, obviously you had Cam Ward, but Cam Ward was the 50th ranked offense in the country at Washington State with you know, and he had good receivers. Kyle Williams got drafted higher than any of ours. So really what we have is an offense that you're always ahead of. You know, you're never in 2nd and 12, right? You're never in 2nd and 12, 3rd and 12. You are in 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4, 2nd and 3. Not to mention the fact that you're converting everything short yardage wise. We were elite short yardage last year. Plus, with all that, we were still top 5 in yards per carry. So it's not like we were just getting 2-3 yards a carry. We were getting 5 plus because we were just pulling guys and pushing guys and moving guys. So that allows you to have an elite offense, which is what we had. And you heard Shannon Dawson talk about it if you watched that All Access show, which we've been talking about here for the spring, but kind of behind the scenes. He said, look, you know, I don't like to lose yardage. We don't like to lose yardage. And the biggest reason we're always getting positive yardage is our offensive line just moves people. Throw the running backs in the mix as well because they're all big physical backs. So that is what we're about. That's why we run inside the tackles. That's why we have tight splits. That's why we're built with such size. And I think ultimately, if you're Carson Beck, it is going to help him perform because last year, Georgia had the 104th ranked running game in the country, I believe. It was in the hundreds. that put a lot of pressure on Beck, and that forced him to force a lot of throws. That's why his interceptions went up. Still threw for a ton of yards, but I think what you saw was the lack of a running game hurting him tremendously. Canes 305 say might head over to the Miami team store today. Yeah, 3 to 4, man. Autograph session. So a lot of guys. Armando Blunt will be out there. I don't have the full list in front of me here. I'm on my phone, but you got just some really, really good student athletes here. And let me pull up the list here. So I don't want to let anybody off for the team store, because we have a great event here from Miami Hurricane teams. So remember, MiamiHTS.com. If you want to buy stuff over the internet, but if you're local, head to the team store. Let's see, who we got at the team store. We got 4 student athletes that are going to be signing autographs. These are great events, by the way. 3 to 4 p.m. today at the team store, located right across the street from the University of Miami. Armando Blunt, going to be elite this year. Tony Johnson, Cincinnati transfer, wide receiver. Keelan Marion, BYU transfer, wide receiver, and Ahmad Moden. So you got a mix of defensive linemen, transfer recruits. It's going to be really a lot of fun. Josh Gross saying, I'm thinking about getting a 100 Years book for my nephew's B-Day. Great B-Day present. This is the 100 Years of Canes book. Get MiamiHTS.com or the store in person. Use promo code INSIDE20. You get 20% off your first item. And really, I can't stress enough. You want to meet players, have your kids meet players, and have just a really great experience. I strongly recommend getting out there to the Miami Hurricane team store, 3 to 4 p.m. Blunt, Keelan Marion, Tony Johnson, Ahmad Moden. I've met Ahmad Moden, interviewed him. He was awesome personality. The other 3 hear great things about, so you could take pictures, have a much more personal setting than just someone's like autograph signing at a mall. Canes 305 asks, does the code work at the store, only online? It works at both. So if you're at the store, just say Canes Inside 20, whatever it is. They got a little Canes Inside button at the cashier. So my guy Jeremy, he'll take care of you. Harry will be out there, the best in the business out there at the Hurricane team store. Martin Dubé saying, hold on, let's get this going here. Trying to work this. This is a process here. Let's see. Comment from Bagging Up. There he goes. He says teams will compress the field to muck up those A and B gaps, press the wide receivers, and throws to force the ball downfield, throw screens to take away the interior run. All right. Well, listen. If it opens up for your wide receivers, then it's doing its job of commanding attention. If you look at last year, teams stacked the box on us plenty early in the season, and all that did was lead to Cam Ward just completely annihilating him. I mean, can you imagine trying to not worry about Cam Ward? That shows you how good our running game was. So, that is to me the key to our running game. Martin Dubé saying, D-Money, from this angle, you look like a young Ricardo Montalban. Fantasy Island, my guy. So anyways, getting back to the offensive line before we get too far off track, the backup center position. I mentioned Ryan Rodriguez. Also have Nino Francavili there, Canadian, former Harvard commit. You flipped him, and you say flipping a kid from Harvard, that's going to be an overachieving kind of little guy. But he actually has a lot of really good tools. Tested well. I think he ran in the 4.8s, 4.7s in terms of shuttle at our camp. Big physical body. He looks the part more than you think for a guy we got from Harvard. He's definitely a P4 player. Plays center, plays guard. He's in his now second year, developing well. I like Nino as maybe like a Ryan Rodriguez type. You look at the classic backup center, the pure backup center, which would be S.J. Alafatuli, which ironically you say he's a pure backup center, but he actually is more comfortable at guard right now. He played guard at Bishop Gorman, one of the best programs in the country out of Las Vegas. So he's more comfortable at guard. He's still getting used to snapping, had some snapping issues in camp, still working on like snapping and then exploding off, because it's one thing to snap it, it's another thing to be comfortable snapping and then getting off the ball. So he's still working on that. He's a smaller guy. I think he's just a classic redshirt candidate. Put some weight on, get used to snapping, then next year rock and roll. Freak athlete, really twitchy, great leverage, works hard. So I think he's going to be a really good player. He needs a year. I compare it to Alabama's center, the one that they got from Washington when Kalen DeBoer came over. He was like in that 260, 270 pound range out of high school. Took a year of redshirting. Parker Brails for it. took a year to redshirt, and then now is one of the best centers in the country. Appreciate the support as always from Crash Light. You're the man. Asking who's my second team offensive line going into camp. All right, so let's do it this way. Let's put Ryan Rodriguez at guard because I think Nino can handle the center. I mean, Ryan Rodriguez is the backup center, but let's just for purposes here, let's put because you need guards on this backup unit. Let's put Rodriguez at guard. Let's put Francovilli at center. Then I would have Kinsler and Samson Okolola as tackles. It was really big getting those guys to come back because ultimately you have two guys who if they would have transferred this spring to start somewhere, you wouldn't have had them for next year, obviously. Whereas now with them staying, they can not only help you this year and get quality reps, develop in practice, potentially start, but you could also have them next year as your walk-in starters, assuming their continued trajectory. Mirabal likes both those guys. So I think that was a sneaky addition in the portal, or at least retention in the portal, was to get those two locked and loaded for this year, the year and potentially the year beyond. So I'd have them to a tackle. I'd have Rodriguez at guard. I would have Francovilli at center. The other guard, maybe Minaya, maybe Juan Minaya, who's made some progress at guard, but I would have him behind. Rodriguez would be first off the bench at guard, and I think the other two, the guys I mentioned, Kinsler and Okolola, that's really the top 8 with Rodriguez, Okolola, Kinsler, and then the starting line I went over. Because I think what you're going to have with those guys is position flex. They can play guard. One of these other guys can play guard on the starting line. You can move people around. But I would say the first 3 up are going to be Rodriguez, Kinsler, and Okolola. On Okolola, if we wanted him gone, he could have been gone, man. So the fact he's here, I think is a vote of confidence in what Miami is trying to do, and like Miami's faith in him and his role in the future of the offensive line, because otherwise he would have been, if he had no future, he would have been gone. He's an expensive player. He had opportunities to start. They wanted to keep him. Issue with him's always been, he's a wrestler, so he has good balance. He's good at torquing guys, but just the pure power and strength, just popping guys. I think that's been more of a weakness for him. He's developing in that way. Super hard work, already graduated, very intelligent, high IQ guy. So I think he's gotten better and better with Mirabal. He has good quickness. He has good wrestling leverage and stuff like that, and then the IQ, all things that will help him as a lineman. But I think when it comes to just the pure pop, that's what he's working on. Kinsler, elite talent. He's as talented as anybody on the starting offensive line in terms of he's probably the best athlete of any of those guys, including Manoa. Like, if you had a basketball team, if I was trying to get someone to throw the like a tight end tackle eligible kind of deal, probably have Kinsler. So he's a great athlete, huge, just natural size, not fat but big, naturally big player. I think with him it was just an adjustment, right? He was well coached in high school, but still, he just had an adjustment period, I think, coming from there to this level. So those two are going the right direction. I think your 3 backups are going to be Rodriguez, Kinsler, and Sampson. And the one with the highest upside there is probably Kinsler. If he could put it together, and some of these guys develop later, we've seen it a million times. If he can keep developing, you're talking about NFL player all day long with the Kinsler. So just continue to roll down this backup offensive line. Like I said, those are really the top 3. When it came to Minaya, he's somebody that really, I think, had a big adjustment starting off last year, but made steady progress. You look at Tinalao deciding to transfer. I think Minaya kind of took that spot in the rotation, or at least in the practice rotation. I'm not sure he's at the level where you put him in a game right now, but I think he's got the size. He's a redshirt freshman only. He's continuing to develop. Mirabal's a developmental coach. He's in the mix. I think him. You look at Jaden Wilkerson, also the tackle. He had some injuries in spring, but certainly looks the part. Wilkerson and Minaya, those guys look the way you want offensive linemen to look at the University of Miami. It's just going to take some time with both of those guys, but I think they have a chance if they stick with the program. Maybe it's year 3, maybe it's year 4, which it's not unusual. You see that at other top programs where guys don't play until that long. But I think with those guys, if you can get them to that year without any kind of weird stuff happening, a portal, whatever, I think those are guys that can help you just from a physical standpoint, and they move well enough, and they seem to want to be coached. Demetrius Campbell, I think a little further behind than Wilkerson, just a little not as big. Um, he's got enough size, but Wilkerson's got pretty special size, I think, in just body type, being an athletic basketball player. Campbell, also a basketball player from Orlando. He brought him in last year with Wilkerson, but I'm not sure he has necessarily the same frame at the moment. Derek Plaz, player you got from Jacksonville, actually from the alma mater of Carson Beck in Mandarin High School. Really solid talent. I think he's working back from injury, so that set him kind of off the radar here. But once he gets back into the flow, I think he's someone that could be one of these Swiss Army knives. He plays a little tackle, plays a little guard. I think that's sort of his future. Who else? Max Buchanan, another freshman, tough interior player. He could potentially be a center down the road. If you say we want to give SJ some competition at center, you could see Max Buchanan doing that. He played tackle, played guard, he played every single spot really in spring. So he's another one of those versatile pieces. But I think all those guys are going to have a tough time when you bring these freshmen in that we have committed, the Jackson Canwells, the Joel Irvins. It's going to be a lot of it's going to be a very, very heavy dose of talent being infused. That's going to have to be held off by that class of players. Playing time asking, is this just me or is D-Money need to get a 5G on his phone? Yeah, guys, let me know how this is. Streaming on the phone is not ideal. Just the internet in my hotel room wasn't working too well. It's coming off fine on my end, but let me know. I'm not watching the stream, so let me know if you guys are hearing me clear, seeing me clear. Right here with the Rocky Mountains in the background at Estes Park, Lake Estes, Rocky Mountain National Park. Gonna rock around here and get into some stuff with my kids. I just wanted to make sure that I had you guys on here. So, any questions on the offensive lines? I've walked through a bunch of guys, and I wanted to make sure that I had them all covered. I think I've covered everybody that's on scholarships right now. If I didn't, I apologize to anyone I've left out, and I'll get to them. But basically, with the offensive line, I think the critical issue is just I think Francis staying healthy, right? Just your impact guys. Like, you don't want to lose impact players, because even though you have depth to replace a Francis and I think still play good offensive line, if you lose Francis, I mean, he's a difference-making player, right? He is a difference-making player on the offensive line. So you don't want to lose him. You don't lose anybody. I mean, injuries are the worst part of football. I'm more nervous in camp during any other period of sports, just because I really want to see these guys succeed, and I hate the possibility they can get hurt. So before the season, so you want to, you got to stay healthy. Francis, though, is the one I think. All the other guys feel good, but losing a guy like Francis would be a killer. Nashville Kane asking, is the line better than last year? I think so. I think Brockemeyer will at least match what you had with Carpenter, and then you bring everybody else back. Jalen Rivers was a huge piece, but he missed a lot of time. And Jalen Rivers, by the way, I'm the biggest Jalen Rivers fan on the planet. I thought he was a steal where the Bengals got him. He should have been a day 2 pick. But Rivers was out last year, and the line didn't. The offense didn't miss a beat really with Rivers out. We were better with him, but we were fine with him out. Gone. Bell's going to be a lot better, and that's another question here from Robert Perez. Is Bell going to take the next step? Markel Bell. I would say yes, he is. Just because he's such a hard worker, he's so diligent in film, weight room, flexibility training. I mean, he cares about being good, and he's smart. So usually guys like that get better. I don't think he was expected to play as much as he did last year. So the fact that he was starting games at left tackle early, big games, I think that was him being ahead of schedule. So now you're seeing him with development. I think he should be very, very strong. So I think the line in general is going to be better, more depth, better up front. Just Cooper will be better. McCoy will be better. Now I know it will go from just really, really good ACC player to potentially the best player in the country at his position. She wasn't really that far off last year, to be honest, but I think he'll have a better chance this year. I think the line will be better. Carlos Montilla asks, do I foresee more rotation in the line this year? It's a good question. I mean, hopefully you get some blowouts so you can kind of put in a Kinsler, right? You can put in Okunlola, let those guys develop, and go from there. So I hope there's more rotation. That means we're playing well. I hope it's not rotation because guys are playing poorly. I don't see that. But at the same time, how much do you want to take Francis Mount off the field? The center's hard to rotate. Markel Bell, you're probably going to want to keep him on the field. Your guards are good. I mean, so you got a lot of good, talented guys. I think really we were very lucky with injuries last year. The last 2 years, probably on offensive line, we've been very blessed and not have too bad injuries, knock on wood. But I think the natural reality is guys are going to get hurt. So you look at Notre Dame last year, they were an elite offensive line all year. A lot of that was with backup players who, they weren't like scrubs at all. They were really good, but they were maybe the loser of a battle in camp. So you saw Notre Dame really play 8 guys last year, go and do what they do, go to the national championship game. Now, a lot of those guys who were the backup players that played have now transferred to Tennessee, Indiana. Where else did they go? I think one of them went to Nebraska. So big schools to go as starters and making NIL money as those rotational guys. So I think Miami's going to be similar to Notre Dame last year. We got 8 guys that can really do work. Burstone, appreciate you. Always shout out to the Phil and smash that like button. It's free. Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can. Hoping to get Streeter on tomorrow. I got to text them because I got to figure out my timing over here in the mountains. We're working it. Robert Perez, is the toughest test for the defensive or the offensive line Notre Dame? Yeah, I think so. Someone might say Florida because they got Tyreek Sapp, who will be a pretty decently high pick. Caleb Banks, but Miami destroyed those guys last year up front. I mean, one-on-one just kind of embarrassed them. And then you look at that performance, and then the fact that UF lost a lot on their defensive line. Basically, their whole backup defensive line those are starters. Those guys play a ton of snaps if you're good. Those guys all went to LSU, to Texas A&M, to Alabama, North Carolina. So they lost a lot of their depth up front. So yeah, you bring back Caleb Banks, Tyreek Sapp. Those guys didn't do much against Miami last year. Mauanoa was big boying Tyreek Sapp pretty much the whole game. Caleb Banks didn't do anything. So you lose those guys, you don't have any of the depth behind them. I think U.S. defensive line to me is probably one of the more overrated units, and maybe this will go back to haunt me and people will find this. But I think that UF is overrated on the defensive line and in general. Whereas Notre Dame, I think, is properly rated. Man, those guys are beasts, and they're gonna be tough to deal with for sure. Nashville Kane St. Beck's gonna love playing behind this line. I mean, he told you the deal. He said, "Look, I went to Miami because of the situation, offensive line, seeing what Cam Ward did, Dawson, etc." So, what I like is that Carson Beck is. You watched on this All Access video yesterday, where people were talking like you had trying to remember who was. I think it was Elijah Lofton was saying, Beck really knew the offense well, and he knows where Mauanoa too. He knew where everything is. He knew all the checks. Beck is someone like Cam Ward, who's very, very high IQ and very high experience level. This guy's played a ton of football. He's played against defensive lines that are way better than UF's. Quite frankly, with defensive lines that are better than Notre Dame's. And this guy was in practice going against Jalen Carter and guys like that. So I don't think any of the fronts he sees are going to scare him or surprise him or throw him off kilter. Obviously, no quarterback likes to get hit, but I think with this offensive line, he's probably not going to get hit a lot. But what you heard a lot is the IQ. I've heard that all last season about Beck. We talked about it on the show, but now hearing it from the players, hearing how just he works with mirror ball and he's in that room knowing what the offensive line's supposed to be doing. He's taking out the offensive line again. These are things Cam Ward did also, but that's not a negative. Cam Ward was the best player in the country, best quarterback I've ever seen in Miami, #1 overall pick. So the fact that they shared those traits, I think, is quality, and just the experience, the IQ of Beck, I think is going to help that offensive line a lot. One thing also you see with Beck that maybe, I think Beck, Carson with Cam Ward, he helped the offensive line in terms of his escapability, right? He can make guys miss, but I think if you're talking about just sack numbers, I think that Ward was actually worse for the offensive line. And when people say that's crazy, I mean, how many times did he escape sacks? TVD got sacked a lot less than Ward. Ward took a lot of sacks because he held onto the ball, and I don't say that as a negative because when Ward held onto the ball, he made the best plays we've ever seen in our lives. So it's not it's like, oh man, Ward really killed us by holding onto the ball. He was allowed to hold onto the ball by the offensive line and by his own escapability, and then he made the craziest, best plays we've ever seen. He made fans for life with those plays. Cam Ward could not hold up to higher esteem. But if you're looking at just sack numbers, I think Cam Ward got sacked more from sacks that him than sacks that he saved the offensive line from. And the evidence I would use is TBD from one year to the next. Also, Cam Warren, he's been a high sack player his whole career. So I think in that one respect that Beck will help the offensive line is Beck is very good at the checkdowns. Beck is very good at just seeing those options in front of him if he does get pressure. And he doesn't have the outside the pocket ability of Ward, but he's just as quick and athletic, so he can extend plays as well. So, is the feed's getting bad? Apparently, let me know if you guys are seeing me here. But anyways, I do think Beck will help the offensive line. And then a great comment by Burst. I mentioned this earlier. What other college offensive lineman in the country's called out Micah Parsons? You got to love CC. Yeah, man, love CC. Love that mentality, right? That he's not worried about blocking the ACC guys. He's worried about blocking Micah Parsons. Bagging up saying, was he holding the ball, Cam Ward, because the receivers weren't uncovering? Yeah, I'm sure that's part of it. But I mean, look, you think about like Georgia Tech, right, where we had some checkdowns to Elijah Roy that we missed. Yeah, I just think part of his game is to be a big game hunter. And I'd rather Cam Ward have that mentality where he's trying to make huge plays every time. That's why he's Cam Ward. That's why we were all loved what we saw last year. But I just think offensive line protection-wise, Beck is going to help those guys more with his checkdowns. So almost 1,200 on there to like and subscribe to the show. We'll be back in front of the computer soon, but hey, listen, there's no days off, man. We make do with whatever we can do. Appreciate everybody's support. Appreciate you, Crash Light, and everybody else that's contributing their comments. Appreciate everybody. Go Canes.